There are three functions in DAX to compute averages: average, AVERAGEA, and AVERAGEX. There are no differences in DAX between average and AVERAGEA, therefore we will only talk about average and AVERAGEX. Moreover, average is just the short version of AVERAGEX that you can use when you have only one column to aggregate. In this example, you see that we are using average over sales quantity, and we can do that because we are only averaging one column. The same expression can be expressed using AVERAGEX. The two expressions return exactly the same result. If, on the other hand, you need to aggregate an expression, so you want to compute, in this example, the average of quantity times net price, then you need to use AVERAGEX because you need an iterator in order to compute the expression row by row. Another scenario where the AVERAGEX function is required is whenever you want to iterate over a table in order to compute, like in this example, the average sales amount per customer. We define the measure sales amount that just computes the sales amount, and then average customer iterates over the customer and computes the sales amount customer by customer. The result is then aggregated by continent, and this shows the average sales per customer in every different continent. Another scenario where AVERAGEX is required is when you need to access columns which are previously stored in a variable. In this example, we are computing the average monthly sales. So the measure average monthly sales first computes in a variable the monthly sales. This variable contains a column that does not belong to the model. Monthly sales is the sales amount computed month by month and stored in a variable. In such a case, you cannot use average even though it is only one column, because the column does not belong to the model. Therefore, AVERAGEX is needed. And it is what we are doing here. We are iterating over filtered sales, our variable, in order to access the column, the only column which is of interest in the variable. An important note about average and AVERAGEX is that these two functions ignore the blanks, but they consider the zeros. If you look at this query, we have two variables. One is values with blank, and the other one is values with 0. They have the same content for the first three rows, but then values with blank contains a blank, whereas values with 0 contains a 0. And then we compute the average of the values contained in these two variables. If we run the query, you see that average with blank contains 2, which is the average of 1, 2, and 3. Whereas AVERAGEX over values with 0 contains 1.50 because it took into account this 0 that was ignored in the previous function.